thing is, I did get a clarification from Steven. I asked Steven, are all range shots projectile even in the tab camera mode? Does that mean that the trees can get hit even when in tab mode and block the shot? In the video, it looks like you hit a tree with a bow shot in tab camera. He says that's correct. This allows us, even in tab mode shots, to have fun obstruction abilities that block attacks mid-flight. Now, I totally recognize there are some people that are looking at this video and they're dialing it down to the nth degree, and they're like, their hit scan. I want to remind people, this is a 50,000 foot view. They don't have this down in tweaked to the weeds, because then if they had this done and tweaked down to the weeds and it was working perfectly as intended, then they wouldn't be looking for feedback. Right now, it's in a very rough state that they want to get some feedback. Then they want to figure out, is everything working the way they want it to work? And then they'll make sure that things like the arrow going through the ground and still hitting that I haven't seen that particular clip, but there is one supposedly of the arrow goes through the ground and still hits its target. Okay. Well, we saw another clip where it hits the tree and stops. The mob doesn't take any damage. You see the bow hit, and that's okay, right? That is fine. That is what happens, right? They need to make sure that this is well received, and then if this is well received, they'll move forward with the next iterations. Now, I know that projectile combat isn't what everybody wanted. I understand that. I get that. I know some people wanted hit scan. I understand. This is going to be something that's different. It's going to be something that people are going to have to grow into. They're going to have to adapt to. And that simply just is the way it is. I know that the action players yesterday, as I've said, there's the multiple camps of the action players. There's the Guild Wars 2. There's the Guild Wars 2 camp, and that's really the Guild Wars 2 and the ESO camp. And then there's the BDO New World camp. And unfortunately, this group of people didn't get what they wanted, right? That group of people, the BDO New World group, they feel like they're not getting the combat they want. I want to remind people, Intrepid did an amazing job yesterday. A couple of months ago, they did the melee weapon reveal, and my copy of that's going to be in the upper right-hand corner on the YouTube video. And I called it out. I said, this is bad. The showcase is bad. The way you did the show and tell was bad. You showed a lot, but you didn't tell anything. I think yesterday during the live stream, Steven was receptive to the feedback in my video. And they actually, as they were going through, they said, okay, we've been in tab. Now we're going to shift. We're going to move into action. They did a very good job of saying, we have long bows, we have short bows. Here's the difference. In long bow, we can charge up even the basic attack. In short bow, we're going to have a higher crit rate. In long bow, your movement speed's going to get impacted. In short bow, you're going to be able to move around a lot faster. Now, there is a question, if anybody at Intrepid does happen to stumble upon this video, what happens to a projectile in flight at the end of a range? Like, is it a 30-meter range, and then at 30 meters, the arrow will be at still head level and fall off? Or will the projectiles be affected by gravity, so by the end, they fall off not due to 30-meter range, they fall off because they do, in fact, like, hit the ground? That's going to be something that people are interested in, especially since you can free shoot. Are we going to have situations where people are free shooting and inadvertently hitting people all over the world? Like, you have a fight going on and then 100 meters away, you're inadvertently hitting people. I don't think that's going to work too well either. I think these are questions we need to have answers to. Are ammunition affected by physics? Yeah, that's really the big one at the end of the day. Is the ammunition affected by physics? Now, as we saw yesterday, one thing that Steven didn't mention, and I'm wondering if it's still valid, is are the hard CCs only attached to action abilities? That was something that was mentioned in the past. They also didn't mention whether or not they've made a final decision on our abilities action or tab, or our abilities action and tab, and you can use them either way. Was there free shoot? Yes, there was. Steven naturally gravitated to hard locking because Steven is a tab player. I noticed that during the action section, Steven gravitated towards hard locking his targets. If you know anything about the driver, you know that the driver himself, he is a tab player. He's a clicker. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do agree with the sentiment that some people have said in the past, and this is no slight to Steven. I think maybe they should have somebody else drive, somebody who's more proficient with action combat. As you saw yesterday, Steven had to drop into GM mode so he couldn't be killed. I get it. Steven's having fun. It's his game. He wants to present it. But I think having a different segment of somebody else driving who's more proficient to let action players know that, yeah, there is a higher skill ceiling, because it didn't look like there was a high skill ceiling yesterday. One thing I do want to remind people we did hear Steven say is that everything's going to be, quote, stat opposed. What this means is, I have a video up there again, my YouTube viewers, over there in the corner, I talk about the tab versus action and what stat opposed is and how the stat hit flow goes. I don't know what he means by every ability is stat opposed. He did talk about the idea that there are some target specific abilities and then there are some templated specific abilities. A target specific ability is that you have to obviously have a locked target. You must fire the ability or the skill at a particular target. A template ability is, this is your ground reticle AoE, your frontal cone, the airstrike ability that you're going to see. We need to get some more details on that one. Do you have to have a target to use it, or can you use it as general mobility? It would be a good way to include the community, get an influencer in the genre. No, absolutely not. That's not what you want to do. Not at this stage. It's a little weird, man. I did see a lot of rage yesterday from a certain segment of the community. They were mad. They're getting the targeting that they want. They're getting the action targeting they want, but they weren't happy about it. I don't understand the direction they're going with that. We did get a lot of good answers during the Q&A yesterday as well. So for those of you that haven't listened to, for those of you that didn't watch this, I definitely recommend popping into the official live stream. I'll put a link in the description of the YouTube video. And watch this whole thing. You can play it at times too. You're really just trying to listen to what the devs are saying. I think they've gone in the right direction. Other than I think they've gone in the right direction for a hybrid game. BDO players, New World players, you're not going to get that high action, skill ceiling, action only combat. You're just not going to get that. From the Q&A, one of the things was not every weapon is going to be able to be dual wielded. Originally, they said every weapon was going to be able to be dual wielded. But now, when they take weapon types and weapon speeds, they're going to merge those together. And you're going to have to come up with some dual wield trees. I really don't have a good answer. It's going to be something, hopefully, when I interview Steven later this year, I can get a little bit more clarification on. They did finally give the answer on summoners, which most of us have been in the community for a while know. Summoners are going to be able to do their thing based on their secondary class. So a Brood Warden, which is a summoner tank, by going secondary archetype tank, that's going to affect the the summons that you summon. So being a Brood Warden means your tanky summon is going to be tankier. Being a Necromancer, which is Summoner plus Cleric, means your healer summon is going to be more heal efficient. I did pick up on something. I don't know if you guys picked up on it during the Caravan presentation. Steven talked about the word gamification. If you guys have never heard the word gamification, it's when I say we got to remember that the game is a game, that's gamification. But he talked about stolen goods, and he said it a couple of times, and I've never heard him reference that goods are going to be stolen goods. So again, that's another one of those like in the weeds things he mentioned, and now I'm going to try to drill down later and get some more details. For those of you that are worried about dual specking or saving multiple specs, yes, you are going to be able to have multiple different specs saved. If these changing specs require you to change your secondary class, change your augments, you're only going to be able to do that in town. We already knew that you could change parts of your spec like while you were in the wild, but you can't change your secondary class. So that answered that question. We talked about that. That's a quality of life thing. I did hear Steven talk about the idea about disguises and the ability to hide your name or your nameplate. I'm very interested to see what they come up with that. I know rogues, rangers, thieves, pirates, you're all going to be interested in that. So when you ask me, what more can you tell me? The answer is I can't tell you any more right now. All I know is that they said they are trying to come up with some ways to do disguises so that they can hide your nameplate. I did like that they kind of touched upon the Mariner skill tree again. Didn't give us any really new information, stuff that we knew. For those of you that are worried about seasons on the oceans, no, the oceans will not have seasons, but ships can have status effects. So you can, in fact, ignite a ship and it can be burning. It could have a debuff. So that is interesting stuff. With that said, this is sort of the update video for the month of September. That was on the last day of the month. There's really not a lot to say, but there is a lot that I want to remind people. If you're unhappy with what you saw yesterday, don't go off the handle and just start raging and insulting Steven, insulting his team. He's not going to be receptive to that feedback. If you have feedback, give them very pointed feedback. I think the ranged showcase misses the mark because... But I also want to remind you, if you think yesterday's showcase hit the mark, make sure to leave positive feedback as well. Most people that are satisfied never leave positive feedback. That's like leave a comment on a YouTube video because it helps the YouTuber. It's a form of engagement. It pushes the algorithm. If you think it's a good video, just put good vid and give it a thumbs up. That's 2 bits of engagement, really helps the YouTuber. If you think it's a good video, but you never, do that, YouTube's like, oh, nobody's engaging with it. So the same thing, if you think the direction Intrepid took with the action combat being more Guild Wars 2, soft lock, the ability to hard lock, make sure you leave them a comment and tell them you think it's a good thing.